you want to do a little test, I can figure out what is your, I'm a body language expert, so I can actually look at you and pretty
You could
quickly.
probably just tell I'm like a nervous anxiety wreck. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Getting Blunt with Keith. If you enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and also make sure to hit that red subscribe button. We are getting really close to 2,000 subscribers. Before we get started, I am proud to announce that the Bogcast has officially partnered with Hempful Farms. These are products that I truly believe in and that I have been using for years now. Even Fabius and Gertie love their Paw Putty products. They literally have CBD for everyone. So if you want to save money when buying your CBD, just go to hempfulfarmscbd.com, use promo code BODCAST, and you will save 15% off when spending $35 or more, and you will get free shipping when spending $75 or more. So again, just use promo code BODCAST at the checkout and go to hempfulfarmscbd.com. Today I have a very special guest, especially if you're an actor looking to improve your skills, or maybe you're just trying to find a new method. She has over 20 years experience casting studio films, indie films, network television, commercials, new media. She actually started off as a communications expert specializing in deception detection and is a body language expert. She was able to take all of this knowledge and all these skills and is now the founder of the communication method for actors, which is a science-based acting method. I would like to introduce to the show Faith Hibbs-Clark. Awesome, and welcome to the show, the founder of Communication Method for Actors, Faith Hibbs-Clark. Thanks for joining the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so just before we get like really deep into it, can you just kind of briefly explain what communication method for actors is and like the kinds of things that you offer?
Yes, communication method for actors is a film acting training method that's based entirely on science. So rather than leaving it up to happy accidents or worrying about people's opinions of you, we base this off of science and the concept of neurocoupling with the decision maker. And there are specific ways that we can do that using psychology, behavioral science, and neuroscience. So it's a very unique method for actors that, again, is completely based on science.
How long have you been coaching for about now?
Well, the interesting thing is that I did this work before I worked in the entertainment industry. So I started off using this method working with trial attorneys. It wasn't called communication method for actors back then because it wasn't for actors. I used to coach and work with trial attorneys, CEOs, federal agents, and politicians. And because my former career before I got into casting was working as a communications expert, specializing in deception detection. And deception detection is when you can read somebody's body language and tell if they're lying or not and how they feel. So it was born out of that because when I went into casting, I realized that actors weren't being taught the same things that these other professions were. So in a lot of ways, I've been teaching this for 30 odd years because I was teaching it before casting. I just customized that technique and that approach specifically for actors. When I started to see like actors, I remember the first audition I did, it was, I felt like actors were in so much pain. They looked absolutely traumatized to be coming in to do an audition. And I thought, gosh, they don't need to be that traumatized. They don't need to be that nervous. They don't need to worry about remembering their lines. They don't need to worry about their optimum outcomes. And they don't need to be doing yoga in my waiting room.
I think that's me because when I used to actively go on auditions for acting, I would be that person, just super nervous, super traumatized. But knowing that the casting agent ultimately is on your side, and they want you to get the job, right?
Well, the casting director is what I call the communication facilitator. So I think once you understand the environment that you're auditioning in, this is kind of basic to the what I call acting communication. And that is that you have the sender, the message, the receiver, and feedback. But in that environment, you also have the casting director, and the casting director serves as the facilitator. So once you realize that you, as the actor or the sender, you're sending out a message that is going to be judged by the receiver, who in a prelim audition isn't even in the room yet. I
Yeah.
love when people say, "Oh, I want to get back in the room. I want to get back in the room." The person who is making the decision about your audition was always viewing you by tape. The only difference is you don't have the casting director there to facilitate that process. So we become that for you. We help you communicate. We capture the video, but ultimately we are not the ones that judge you in that environment. So you want to look at the receiver of that acting communication. And this is what I think a lot of people don't understand. A lot of actors don't understand when they're going into an audition, is that the casting director is not the person that's going to make the decision. Yes, if you're awful, absolutely god awful, they might not submit you to the director.
I think if more actors knew that, like, a lot of stress would be relieved. Like, okay, this isn't the person that necessarily making the decision, so that actually might leave a lot of stress, right?
Absolutely. And if they
Yeah.
realize that, this talk of casting directors want you to do well, that is legit. That is the truth. Because if that actor doesn't do well and we have to take them off the tape, then we have a numbers issue. We might look bad in front of our client that we don't have enough good people. I mean, so when you look at it, you've got acting communication you've got these different environments. And I always say that it's your communication, your acting communication is environment specific. So the environment where you were submitting or your agent was submitting on your behalf, that's the environment where we, as the casting director, are what I call the receiver of your communication. You send in your reel, you send in your headshot, you send in your resume, clips, whatever. That's your acting communication in that environment. And in that environment, because we have the ability to yay or nay whether you come in for an audition, then we are the receiver. Then what we think matters. Now, fast forward that, you get an audition, you come in, and now you've already gotten what you wanted from us, the casting directors. Now we want to make sure that what you do in front of the camera is going to impress the next decision maker, which in an audition is going to be the director. So the director becomes the receiver of your acting communication. So now you have to be thinking, what does this director think of my performance based on the medium in which we're communicating, which has always been video, always video, at least in the prelim round. And how can I communicate that message in a way that is going to neural couple and make them want to pick me? And there's a whole science behind neurocoupling, but let's just talk about for a second, the next stage in that is the callback. The director is still the receiver of that communication. So you're still neurocoupling with the director. Then there's the time that you're on set. Now, even on set, when you're doing what the director asks you to do in your performance, you have to change your mindset now to the new receiver of your communication, which is the audience at large. The audience that ultimately is going to watch that movie, that TV show, etc. So fundamental to my method and to acting communication is just that it's environment specific, that you have to consider, how am I going to communicate in this environment based on what I know about this environment? So how do I make the neurocoupling process work in this environment of getting an audition? Now I'm in an audition. How do I get a callback? How do I, get the part after the callback? And how do I impress the audience once you are on screen? And those each have different formulas. So
I think that's the hardest thing for an actor, at least for me personally, is, ultimately I just want to be on a film set acting, right? But then
right.
there's this whole audition process, which is like a whole other skill and thing on its own that's separate. And so I know actors that are phenomenal actors that are just horrible at auditions, and I know actors that are great at auditions that aren't even the greatest actors, right? So it's like you have to be able to be skilled at all of those things. And I'll admit I suck at auditioning. So
Oh, well, we can fix that, by the way.
yeah. This is great.
Yeah, this is absolutely true. It's a different beast, so to
Mhm.
speak. And that's why I say it's important that you understand that the environment is changing, and really understand what you're performing for, who you're communicating with, and what your optimum outcome from that receiver is going to be. So the problem is that a lot of actors come into auditions worried about the casting director and thinking that they're doing a performance that would be akin to an on-set performance, and it's not. It's just not. It's, in fact, if you think about it, when we used to be in the room, as they say, when you came into the casting office, and it's a very uncomfortable environment, and not by design. It's not like the casting directors want you to feel uncomfortable.
This
It's
is a
just
very odd thing to do. Auditioning is a weird thing.
you're standing on a spot.
Yeah.
Do you remember when they used to have you stand on a mark?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and
stand on an X on the ground.
then you have to spin around and
Oh yeah, the 360 profile. That's more for commercials, but yeah, the lights in your face. You don't have any costumes. You don't really even have any direction per se.
And then
And
sometimes everyone in the lobby looks exactly like you. Like I used to have long hair and a beard, so I was typecast for a lot of roles. When I would go to different auditions, it'd be like 30 other dudes that look just like me. So it's like, this is weird, you know?
yeah, and until that point, you didn't realize there was 30 other people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if I can handle that. I like to think there's just one of me. If I saw
No, I know exactly, right? Well, then at that point, you got to like figure out a way as an actor, like how can I separate myself from all these other individuals, you know?
It's a really good point I'd like to speak to, because only about 5% of your communication value is based on physical appearance. Now, you have to assume that, I was going to say that when you walk in and you see a bunch of people that look like you, then the casting director's done a good job, because they know the
Well,
specs, they know what the director's looking for. So
I'm so glad you just said that 5% of looks, because I didn't mention it's 30 other better looking versions of myself too. Like usually just like these jack dudes or like models, you know, and I'm like, oh man, I don't fit in here.
you're like, that's what I could look like.
Yeah.
That's me with pecs.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad that you're saying that about the look part.
Yeah, well, and that's already covered, if you think about it, because again, if the casting director has done their job right, that 5% is already taken. If you come in and you don't look anything like it, by the way, don't think that that's, you have no chance. Sometimes we will throw in, and casting directors will throw in a wild hair, so to speak. And that's just the one-off that maybe this director has said to us, hey, I'm open to changing the gender of this role, or opening this up to, transgender or whatever. So you have to kind of trust the process, that if you were invited to audition, you are right for the role. I mean, ultimately it's the performance. So let's take a look at that, because I think that's going to take away some of the mystery. My job using science, I feel like, is to take away the mystery and the pain that I see actors go through. That's the whole point. Because, on the flip side, I've been exposed to other acting kind of programs and teachers, and that style of teaching can be really abusive in and of itself.
Well,
And
I actually had a question about that, as far as like, because you've been in the game so long, like how acting methods have evolved over time, and are some of them outdated that people teach and use?
100%. You look at somebody that came up to me at the Southwest Actors Convention, and they're like, "Oh, I love your method. It's just like Chekhov." I'm like, "The hell it is! It's not at all like Chekhov." First of all, Chekhov was before the theater, and Chekhov is dead. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
And while his contributions to acting is undeniable, those practices are quite outdated. And I would definitely challenge a point by point on the comparison between Chekhov and communication method for actors, which, by the way, sometimes is just referred to as acting science. So a lot of those types of methods, we could go through them, and we could talk about why they're just not practical for modern acting. For example, some of them are based on, drudging up. This is why I say it's kind of abusive, because some of them are based on drudging up these terrible, painful trigger memories, which makes going to acting class feel,
Not fun.
therapy. Yeah, like,
Yeah, yeah.
God, I'm going to cry. I'm going to be emotionally traumatized all over again. Scientifically, it isn't sound. It isn't sound, because here's the thing. You process, if you're going to bring up an old memory, first of all, that's traumatizing or re-traumatizing the victim, which I think is immoral and irresponsible to do in an acting workshop, without, professional, you should be trained in a professional psychologist to do something like that. But scientifically, it's not sound, because we actually store our memories in numerous parts of our brain. The smell of something, the touch of something, all of that has different sensory data to it. And it's kind of like blockchain. If you're familiar with blockchain,
Yeah, yeah. A
in
little
the
bit.
tech world, your brain stores different parts of that, say, traumatic memory in different parts of the brain based on what portion of that memory it's storing. So you would have to unlock, just like blockchain, you would have to unlock all of those parts at once to accurately recreate that memory. And that is almost the side of shrooms and hypnosis is
Yeah.
almost impossible, neither of which I recommend for your auditions, by the way. So it isn't reliable. The other thing that the brain does, because remember, the brain does two things really well, and I talk about this a lot. Your brain is there to survive, which is some of your nervous behaviors in an audition, and evolve. It wants more to evolve, but it will do everything it can to survive. So one of the things that the brain does to survive when drudging up these painful memories for your art, is it will desensitize. So every time that you pull up that traumatic experience, it's going to consciously desensitize that so that
That
it doesn't
makes a
feel.
lot of sense.
So that's why, thinking about your dying grandmother might work, the first couple of times that you try that before, a dramatic audition. And this is why I saw people being kind of traumatized in the waiting room. But it doesn't over time. I mean, time itself desensitizes our traumatic experiences, So these things are outdated, and not necessarily scientifically grounded. And I could kind of go, point through point, the different types of methods. But really what I was referring to when I said that was acting teachers who maybe are actors themselves, who decided that they're so amazing, that they book so much. I'm kind of saying this sarcastically.
I get it.
That they're going to teach, right? And because they're not sure, maybe they don't even prescribe to any method. They just got their method, the way that they do it, which is obviously so amazing that they are booking all the time, right? Wink, wink. And then I see them literally, physically, and emotionally and verbally abusing some of these actors. And I'm not saying this is all acting coaches. There's some great acting coaches out there that are also actors. But far too often you see these types of coaches cussing them. I don't effing believe you, which is like, okay. Again, getting in their face and demoralizing them and making them cry, but not even for
The right reason.
yeah.
Yeah.
Show Barry on
Oh, that's one of my favorite shows. I love that show. On HBO?
yeah.
That show's amazing.
I mean, he does that in one of the
You know
scenes.
what? Just really quick, speaking about Barry, the actress in that show is one of my favorite actors ever, because she's literally acting within acting. Like when she does those scenes when they're acting class, and she has to
Yeah.
like do the scene but then like go back into character. It's just like she blows my mind. I love that actress.
You have to be a really good actor to act badly. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. Yes,
Like, it
exactly.
has to show that she's not a good actor, and then she has to show that she is.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that show blows me away. What is an audition deal killer?
An audition deal killer. There's things that you can do in an audition that just automatically break down communication and negate your chances of getting booked. There are just things that you should know to do or not do. And if you don't do or not do those things, then you're going to be perceived as not experienced, and that can be a liability for production. We take it very personally. I think actors take it very personally, but a lot of times it comes down to, we don't have the time to teach you the stuff you should know. Therefore, you become a liability of time and cost on set. So, for example, stopping yourself during an audition, you might do that on set. You don't get to do that on set. The director tells you to cut, right? So you stopping during an audition is definitely a very fundamental and basic deal killer. You not knowing where to look during the particular environment, again, and type of audition, deal killer.
Just knowing where the camera's at and stuff.
Well, knowing specifically where you need to look for that type of audition. I think so many times, you get this kind of oversimplified version from, some of the kind of people just kind of trying to help out. And they'll say things like, oh, just look to the left or right of the camera for film, and you look into the camera for commercials. No, it would definitely, there are some times when you look into the camera for commercials, depending on what type of commercial it is. For example, if it's a spokesperson commercial, improv commercial auditions, it would depend on which type of commercial improv it was, whether or not you look into the camera or you look somewhere else, and where you look. With film and television, most of the time you're not looking into the camera, but there are exceptions where you would look into the camera. So it isn't just as easy as that, but
you kind of just got to know the role, right? And the part.
Well, you've got to know the kind of the protocol too.
Yeah. Do you have a method for actors in regards to like memorizing lines? Do you teach that at all, or do you have a way?
I teach the science of memorization. It's a really popular course because a lot of people struggle with it. Look, first of all, most people that come to me for help for memorization do not have a memorization issue. They have a recall issue.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So let me explain. One of the ways that your readers, your viewers, I give you some like a little mini course here. One of the ways that they can check themselves or diagnose themselves in a sense is to see if they can see how long it takes them to memorize 50 words. 50 words. If they can memorize 50 words in 8 minutes or less, they're in good shape. But most of the time, the people that come to me, they can do that. They can do that in far less than 8 minutes, because 50 words is really not that many words. Here's the thing. What you want to do to test if you have a memory issue or a recall issue is, after you've memorized those 50 words, see if you can write them down. If you have less than 3 errors or omissions, then you don't have a memory issue, because you've memorized the words. You've proven that by writing it down. If then you want to, to test whether or not you can say these 50 words without too much hesitation and without missing or leaving out or changing more than 3 words. So if you do that and you struggle, then you've got a recall issue. And those are 2 different parts of the brain. So there are different formulas for fixing that. So if you struggle when you are performing the words, then that is not a memory issue. That's a recall issue. And most recall issues are because of what I said before. The brain is only designed to do 2 things: survive and evolve. It means what you're doing is you're triggering your brain to go into survival mode. And that's a nervousness issue. So recall is often tied to anxiety. And so we will then look at and figure out why you're triggering your brain to go into this survival mode of anxiety, rather than the evolutionary mode of desiring to communicate your story to the audience. So and there's very practical ways that we can do that. It's not a difficult thing. I think the most difficult thing for actors is that if they've ever taken a class or tried to work with memorization, they're using formulas, they're using techniques that don't match their brain's learning style. So one of the things we do in this program is figure out what type of learner they are, whether it be visual, vocal, tactile, spatial, auditory, whatever it is. We need to hone in, and I test the students on that. I need to hone into that, figure out how their brain works. And then ultimately we're matching the memorization technique with what type of learning their particular brain does. Often in classes, teachers will teach whatever learning technique, memorization learning technique that works for them. So let's go back to that actor who became a teacher. Let's say he's very tactile. And so for him, for example, writing down the script as a form of memorization.
It's so different for every actor. One of my favorite things to do on this podcast is ask actors, what is your memorization process? And it's different for everybody, so I like to pull little pieces from everyone, but you offer a whole course on this?
I do. It takes, it's a hybrid course. So it's part with me and part on their own, but they do daily exercises to train their brain to memorize quicker. And I guarantee the course, I guarantee that you will memorize faster at the end of that month.
And they can find this on your link tree, right?
I don't know if it's listed in the link tree, but it's on the website, which is actingscience.com.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll put all the links up.
You want to do a little test? I can figure out what is your, I'm a body language expert, so I can actually look at you and pretty quickly.
You could probably just tell I'm like a nervous anxiety wreck.
Well, if I could see your eyes better, I'd be able to tell what kind of learner you are. And then we'd be able to match your learning style to the type of memorization technique that would work best for you. But I'm looking here and I'm not sure I can see your eyes well enough. You get a little closer. Okay. All right, good. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question, just a random question. You're like, oh my God.
No, I'm nervous.
No, come on. You got to play.
All right, let's go.
Okay, all right. You got to get closer to the camera though. I got to see this. Okay. So stay close. Okay. I'm just going to ask you a question and just answer the question honestly. And whatever kind of comes to your mind. All right. You ready? What is your favorite ride at Disneyland?
Space Mountain?
Moi aussi.
Space Mountain? I think they took it down though, didn't they?
I live part-time in France, so I'm giving you
I don't even honestly know very many rides at Disneyland, but
Space Mountain is the I think Splash Mountain is a good one too.
Is this Space Mountain, or am I talking about maybe the Star Wars one?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's kind of cool too. So according to my observations of you when answering that question, and this is about 80%.
Oh, I see. It didn't have to do with me answering it.
No,
It
the
had to do
answer
with
is
how I see.
the answer is irrelevant. It's good to know if we ever go to Disneyland together, I know which one to go to first. What I was looking for is where the direction of your eyes when you were thinking. And this is about 80% effective. And according to my observations of your body language, you are an auditory learner. So techniques that would work for you would be hearing it and repetition. So you running lines with someone, that would work really well for you. You putting it on
like audio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That this would work for you well too. And there's also, there's a section that I talk about in the program about sleep memorization. Sleep memorization has come a long way in recent years because sleep memorization can actually take away memory. If you play the auditory recording all night long, you have to hit it at just the right time in your cycle, in your sleep cycle. And it's highly, highly effective. So for you being an auditory learner, it would be one of the techniques that I would recommend.
Well, what do you mean, like sleeping and listening to it or something? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, you just have to time the recording to hit. We have to coordinate that with your REM cycle. So it has to. If it plays all night, it will actually start deleting the memory. So now
I see what you're saying, yeah.
So now what they've discovered is that if you can get the recording to hit at just the right time and then shut off, And they're doing more and more research with that. So that's come a long way. But for you, unless you are, we would also look at your secondary learning style, which is key as well, because that's what motivates you to learn. So we would look at that. But once you got to get the diagnosis, quote unquote, I'm not a doctor, but once you kind of figure out, you get that evaluation done, then you can start locking in the types of memorization techniques that are going to work for you. But again, key to that is switching you from survival mode, rewiring your brain to go into evolutionary mode, and that thereby bypassing the freeze, flight, and fight instinct, which is what's blocking your recall. So there's things we would have to do with that as well. Incidentally, every month I do a different theme for my social media, just for fun. And next month, November's theme is overcoming anxiety for auditions.
Oh, nice. I think that's my biggest issue is just overcoming that anxiety, just for auditioning.
I mean, I get it. I feel for you. I really do. Like, there's a reason.
But it's crazy because auditioning is like what, 3, maybe 5 people at most, and I get so nervous. I just want to drive onto oncoming traffic. But I could go on a film set where there's like 100 people and feel free and just and be myself and act and have no nerves whatsoever. So it's just crazy how it's just they're completely different worlds.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of that is I'm not trying to publicly diagnose you here, but
No, you're good. I love this.
Part of that is going to be the validation.
Probably, yeah. Seeking to make sure that like they like me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably 100% right.
You're in an audition, you're being judged.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then we would want to delve in a little bit. If I was working with you, I'd want to go in a little bit on, separating yourself from this negative association that you have with being judged. And the more important value, which is you fulfilling your life purpose. If acting is your life purpose. I mean, I do think that sometimes people, it's probably a whole other subject, but I do think that sometimes people do acting for not the wrong reasons, but not the reasons that they think that they're doing it, if that makes sense.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. The actors are a unique group of individuals. I'll say that.
Hats off to actors, though. I mean, hats off to you, chapeau, because it's like it's really, really a difficult thing that you have to do, and the odds are not in your favor. So I think it takes a really strong and powerful human being to constantly make themselves vulnerable and keep going. I mean, I don't know too many other professions where people would survive very long in that regard.
I realize it's just, I don't actually honestly act anymore. I don't like pursue auditions like you, so I'm kind of more behind the camera. But when I did, I realized it's almost like a numbers game. Like a lot of people will set time limits on themselves. They'd be like, if I don't make it in 3 years, I'm giving up and this and that. I never did it to try to become famous. I just did it because I truly actually loved it. And I realized every 100 auditions I would go on, I would get a 1 or 2 pretty good, decent gigs out of it. And I would just kept at it and kept at it. And you're right, it's just constant rejection. But if you're able to deal with that, good things will come, And I know actors now that started when I started who are killing it now, who've, people don't see all the rejections that actors go through. They just see the posts of them getting the jobs and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. Actors have like I said, they're a unique group of individuals, there's a strong group.
If you could just harness that though, because the thing is it's that personality trait in every other area of life is super powerful and will really benefit you in trying to reach your goals. So I think if actors just realize that power that they have of being able to kind of overcome obstacles and deal with that rejection and that anxiety, really positions them nicely just in life. So it's like you're mastering your craft and your art and the passion of acting. But what they don't realize is inadvertently at the same time, they're also becoming a better human being.
And it's stronger too.
Mm-hmm.
It just you're right. It carried over to everything into my real life as far as just not giving a fuck really. You know what I mean? Like what people think and stuff. Cause you kind of,
by the way. I
What's
ran out.
that?
I ran out of those.
You kind of have to, right? Not give
I
a
don't
fuck.
have any give a you know what's back.
Right.
I need
I wanted to touch back on the acting methods, and you're saying like how certain methods like traumatize actors and stuff, because I think that is true. And I'll admit I don't have the best acting training or anything like that, and I've had a scene where I had to cry and I was really nervous, and I'll admit like I went to like a really dark spot, thinking of some just really, you know sensitive and dark things in my life that happened to me to get there. Is there other ways to get to those spots without having to think about that that stuff?
Yes, actually, one of the things that I teach in my program, again, remember I'm a body language expert. And so, and my educational background is in behavioral science, communication, neuroscience, that kind of stuff. So again, this is the science behind the course. But to that point, what I teach is body language coding. And here, follow me with this concept here, because this is another way, and I think more effective way for you to get where you need to be. So the way your brain works is that you experience a situation, you have an emotion, your emotion is then shown through your body language. So if somebody, think of a situation. What's a situation that could happen to you in life?
Someone dies.
What's that?
You mean a dark situation?
Oh, it could be anything. I don't care.
Oh,
Anything.
someone dies, like a family member dies?
Oh my God, really dark, really fast. Oh my God. Okay, well, let's just the die of COVID. Good God, like, do you want to make it political too? Let's see.
Well, not really, but yeah, fine. I don't care.
COVID at a Trump rally? Okay, they die of COVID at a Trump rally.
Let's do it.
Wow. Okay. So that creates, and the person who's obviously the person is dead doesn't have no emotions, no body language, it's just dead, right? This situation happens. What was your relationship to this person that died of COVID at a Trump rally?
It's my uncle.
It's your uncle. Your uncle dies of COVID at a Trump rally, which there's so many questions there. But anyway, so he just drops down dead. And what is an emotion that makes sense for that situation for you to have?
Was he boosted?
No, not a question.
No, it would just be immediate.
There's a lot of questions around this.
Well, it would be immediate sadness, obviously, and then
all right, sadness,
and then probably like, and then obviously wonder like, what in the hell happened?
Stop talking. This is actor talk. Okay, stop talking. This is the problem with actors. They overthink everything. They get all up in here and they overthink everything. So stop asking questions and talking a backstory, blah, 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 right? You're sad. Okay. Sad is one of the universal emotions. So it's easy to play but it's also predictable. So let's go a little deeper and pick an adjective for sad, just to make it a little bit more interesting. What's an adjective that you can come up with that is a form of sadness that's a little bit more interesting than just saying, I'm sad?
Depressed.
Depressed. Okay. Next thing that you do is ask yourself, what do I do when I'm depressed? Body language wise. What does your body tend to do when you're depressed?
This is more tired. Tired.
You're tired. What does that look like in your body?
You're
So physically, you might, your chin might go down, your face might loosen.
Your face is heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your lips may be a little bit pouted out. Okay. Your movements might be slower. Okay. So if that was the emotion that you were experiencing in that situation, I don't think that sadness would hit you right away, but I'm not going to argue your choices here because you're the actor. You get to choose which emotions you go with. But I think that you'd probably be shocked.
I wish I would have chose that word because I would have actually been shocked.
Yeah, shocked is also a universal emotion. Let's just stick with depression for now, just because we already started it. So you get depressed, and this body language is happening. So in life, when you are feeling depressed, which hopefully is not very often, that would send a message from your brain to your body to start behaving in that way. Your speech would slow down. You would probably walk with somebody a lot slower than you would when you're feeling happy. You probably wouldn't talk as much. Different behavioral type things that you do or don't do when you're depressed, because your brain is sending a message to your physical body that that is how you're feeling, and therefore showing that in your body. So this is how I read body language. You might say, "Oh, I'm having a great day, Faith," but I'm reading your body language, going, "You're full of shit. You know what's going on? What are you feeling bad about?" It makes me a very interesting friend to have.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, can you tell if I'm lying too, or
Absolutely. We look for
no?
signals. Yes, body language reading is what I did before I was in casting. But understand that. So the brain sends these messages to your body to show this body language that you are feeling sad and depressed. Okay, here's the thing. Ready? The thing is that that message goes the other way. So if I was to give you the assignment of spend the day with your body, talking slow and, kind of loose face, all the things that we talked about as the body language for that emotion, if you were to spend time doing that, 30 to 45 minutes, in fact, of just doing that, it would send a message to your brain saying, "Hey, brain, we must be sad and depressed because we're doing those things that we do when we're depressed. So we must be depressed." And then guess what your brain does? Because your brain is your faithful servant. Just remember this when you're trying to train your brain. Your brain is your faithful servant. It will do whatever you tell it to do. So what your brain does when it gets that message, it says, "All right, so if we're feeling depressed, I'm going to release some chemicals and block some other chemicals and create the limbic reaction to depression." So your limbic system is all the things that you do, like breathing, heart rate, things that you do without thinking about consciously, right? You just automatic type reactions. So now your breathing slows down. Maybe your heart starts to beat slower or faster, depending on how you react to it. It might block your serotonin uptake. Whatever is compatible chemically with that emotion, your brain starts doing that for you. Understand? So now you aren't acting anymore. Now you are feeling depressed for real. Now, before you think that's dangerous, because it can be.
I was gonna say, isn't that just as traumatizing?
No, because I mean, it's quick. It's over. You're over within seconds, right? As soon as you're done with the audition, all you have to do is
Yeah.
use the physical manifestation or the body language of happiness, joy, peace, whatever, and you can get rid of it.
So it's almost opposite. Instead of starting with the thought and then trying to get the physicalness out of that, you starting with the physical part of it and then training the brain.
Yeah, and that's what I call body language coding. Or cognitive embodiment. It's really the same thing, is that we're getting the outside to program your brain to give you what you want. I mean, ultimately, everything you do in front of the camera is a lie. I call it the entertainment lie. You've got to make it real. And the only way you're going to believe that it's real is if it feels real. What we're not doing is dragging up old memories from the past that have a lasting impact. You can't just, if you get that blockchain reaction that we talked about earlier in your brain to activate, this traumatic memory for the purposes of your audition, you're not shutting that off with anything after the audition. That is going to stick with you for days, weeks, maybe even months. That it will be kind of operating. I'm going back to techie terms here, but it'll be kind of operating in the background, even if you're not physically or emotionally or mentally aware that you're still thinking about it. That program that you've activated in your brain through, trying to activate these memories, it is still running in the background.
I truly believe in that. I'm a true believer in the power of thought. And if you're stirring up those crazy emotions, I mean, yeah, you're gonna carry that around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This, however, all you're doing is getting a physiological reaction. that as soon as you're done with it, it's gone. And if you really want to take that next step, is just use the body language coding of a positive emotion, and you can replace it easily. But really, it only is operating until it's done, and then it shuts off, because that is what the brain is operating. The brain doesn't store that information. The moment to moment sensory data of experience does not store that information unless you make it a long-term memory. And that's, not what you're doing in an audition. You're not making these long-term memories. And frankly, you're not likely to make it or want to make it a long-term memory, because it's not you. It's this character that's going through this stuff. So why would you remember that? Why would you care about that? When it's over, it's over.
Yeah, no kidding. One question I like to ask actors when they come on the show, it's kind of like a segment we do. It's called audition horror stories. Just like an audition an actor went on that was just a complete shit show. I mean, we all have them, right? Is there one that maybe you can tell from your side of it that was just like maybe even in a humorous way? You don't have to obviously give the
I've got
away or
so
anything.
many, my friend. I've got so many. Oh my goodness.
I knew it.
Many. 25 years of casting. I have so many. I'm going to tell you two.
Okay, cool. Hell yeah.
One is just a total horror story. One is
yes.
The horror story one. This woman, she comes into audition, and she does this very intriguing opening moment. She's looking down, and she starts to look up, and then she looks down again. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? This is interesting. And so I like this. This is like, ooh, history.
Yeah.
She does it again. She looks down, and then she starts to look up. She looks away again, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. She keeps doing it, and I'm thinking, okay, a little bit overplay now. Let's get into the piece, right? And finally, about 5 of this like dramatic looking down and looking up kind of thing that she was doing, on about the 5th one, she looks at me, straight at me, and I was like, okay, not at the camera, so she was still good. I'm thinking, okay, this is, again, where are we going with this? But I'm liking it. I'm intrigued. And in her eyes, I read, I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting choice. I like that. I think this character would be sorry. I'm like making this whole, and this is all happening like instantly.
Yeah.
And then I realized what she was apologizing for, as green vomit catapulted towards me and the camera.
Oh.
And I'm standing there. I'm literally drenched in green vomit. I felt like I should be. What's the horror movie with the girl that spins her head?
Oh, Exorcist.
The Exorcist. I felt like a scene in the.
Why did she walk towards you? That doesn't make any sense. Was she that nervous?
I don't know. I mean, she was still technically like in her space, in her audition space. It was just, that's how far the vomit went.
Did she get the part?
And so
did she get the part?
Oh God, no. No, she couldn't do the audition. I mean,
I know, I'm just playing.
She stopped, and I was in like this really, because this was back in person. So we had this. I had a whole day of casting and no extra clothes. I had to go to the bathroom.
That's absolutely disgusting.
Later, she like comes by the office to bring me a gift and to apologize for the situation. And I completely understood. And then she explained that I just found out that I'm pregnant, and I didn't know, but this was like apparently the first sign is morning sickness. And so I'm just really sorry. I'm like, oh, congratulations. She goes, I just want to bring this thank you gift for being so kind and this whole experience. And it was a bouquet of like an edible bouquet of strawberries. I didn't have the heart to tell her that I carry an EpiPen for my strawberry allergy. This girl could not catch a break. So that's probably my best horror story, but I have a funny one that just kind of talk about things needing to catch up with the modern world. And I'm going to date myself here because
okay.
This was back before we really used email. And so it used to be in the early days of casting that if you wanted the script, you would come to the casting office early and you would get the script, and that's when you would work on it. Right there in the casting office, you would work on the script, you would do the script, which is interesting because with my method, I can get you in and out in 20 minutes. If you got 20 minutes to work on your self-tape, then you've got enough time. That is, an hour would be a luxury. But my method is very, very fast. Remember I said earlier, like, stop, you're doing all that actor stuff, stop that. We're just going to get down to the nitty gritty and what matters. That's what the formulas are all about. But anyway, so back in the old days, so you'd have to come in. And so I was cutting edge, of course. and I had a folder with all the scripts, like a few copies of the scripts I had printed out, because I didn't want to have a script for everyone, because it was kind of this early talk of the environment and recycling and yada, yada. So I had a folder, and on the folder, I said, return to folder after the audition. So I auditioned this one particular guy, and he did a great job. And, said thank you, and he left. And I go to the waiting room for the next actor to come in and audition. And this former actor that had just auditioned was still in the waiting room. I'm like, okay, well, maybe he knows people. Sometimes people like to hang out with their lookalikes and
Yeah.
compare notes, right? Like, well, what's your workout routine, man? Well, I kind of his diet. We didn't even know he died. So people sometimes like to do that. And so I didn't, but like, this was in the morning. By the afternoon, and the guy is still there. But at the end of the day, the guy is still there in the waiting room. And, I used to do 8-hour days when we're in person, which is a long time, by the way, to go back-to-back auditions. So finally I said, so, why are you still here? And he's standing next to the table with the folder that has the scripts in it. And he says, because it says here, return to folder after the audition.
Are you kidding?
I'm not. I was like, the script, dude. The script gets returned to the folder after the audition, not you.
Oh my Lord. Holy cow. Was he a good actor?
He was. He got a call back. He didn't.
Let me ask you this really quick. Does something like that make or break a decision? You're like, wow, he's an amazing actor. He's just not an idiot. Like, does that?
Well, being an
sway a
idiot
decision?
can be an issue on set, but no, because what we talked about at the beginning of the show, that I'm not the decision maker once he's come in for an audition.
Yeah.
If his performance is good, I'm sending that to the director. The director doesn't know any of that happened. The director doesn't know this guy was an idiot.
That's true.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. I didn't know if maybe that's something you relay to them, or I don't know.
No, he kind of just drifted off into the world of former actors. I laughed. I thought it was funny. I was just like, dude, this
that's pretty fucking literal.
And he laughed. I was like, thank you. That's awesome. I'd have bought you lunch if I'd have known you were sticking around, but like, the script, not you.
He could have asked you think he would have asked a question or something throughout, like at least in the hour 3 or 4, like, am I supposed to still be here? Like, you know what I mean?
The thing that I thought, I'm so logical with a science brain, and maybe you don't have to even be logical with a science brain to think this too, but wouldn't you start to think to yourself,
like, why did everyone else leave?
Yeah. Older. Why am I the only one? That's a classic example of spotlight syndrome. He was so in his own brain, his own world that.
Ooh, I don't think I've heard that yet. Spotlight syndrome? What's that?
Spotlight syndrome is just where you assume that the spotlight is on you at all times.
I know a lot of people like that.
So, like, for example, you have a coffee stain on your brand new white t-shirt, and you assume that everyone is going to notice that if you go outside the door. Why? Because you're aware of it. Because you're aware of it. The fact of the matter is most people won't even notice it. And then those that do won't comment, and those who do probably won't care. And I think understanding the spotlight syndrome is really freeing, because you can, this is why I'm out of Fox, because I know this now. I remember walking out of, we were casting down at UAT, which used to be like a collaboration
Oh,
thing.
I've auditioned there before.
Yeah, well, it was probably for us.
Yeah, probably was,
And Bella and I were walking out with the equipment. Some of the stuff we kept there, but some of the stuff we would take home. And we used to have the monitors, right? So our monitor was a flat screen TV, and we're walking out holding this flat screen TV. And she said to me, she's like, you know, these people don't necessarily know who we are, and we're walking out with what appears to be the school's flat screen TV. But nobody even
notices.
looked at us twice, let alone question us about it. That's spotlight syndrome. And the reason that, you've heard the expression hide in plain sight.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The reason hide in plain sight works is because of the spotlight syndrome. Because you are aware of it. So you think that everyone else is aware of it. But once you realize that other people are not, just because you are, you can hide in plain sight.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
If you don't draw attention to yourself, ain't nobody else going to notice you. And it's very, very freeing once you realize that nobody else cares.
Yeah, no shit, huh? Isaac, I wanted to talk about video auditions here for a second, if that's cool.
Yeah.
I've just noticed when I first started acting, I would have to travel to LA, even sometimes for the very first audition. But I don't know if it's because of COVID or whatnot, but I noticed that first round of auditions seems like they're always video auditions now, and then they have you come in the room. Is that true, or?
Well, first of all, it is because of the pandemic. We were using self-tapes to see people outside of the local region years before the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic caused a situation where we needed to evolve our casting practice. And during that time period, directors, productions got really comfortable with the idea of doing auditions this way. And again, it goes back to that environment specific concept that we talked about earlier. You were always being judged by your video. Always. Because you would come into the audition, the casting director would videotape you, the videos were sent to the director. The way in which we sent the videos have evolved over time, but you were always judged in the video medium. So to them, it didn't really feel any different. They don't really care.
Oh, I see. Yeah. They always got videos. Yeah.
They always saw videos. So nothing there has changed. And then as far as doing an in-person callback, that would require oftentimes the director having to fly in early. So when we did do in-person callbacks with the director, it was usually the first thing they did when they got into town. And then a lot of times the directors are coming in from town. Or it became like another day that they had to put into the pre-pro schedule. So for them, not having to do either and just booking you off of self-tapes or live virtual castings had so many benefits. So I would say that in major markets and professional casting directors for film and television are by and large still doing, I think the number people throw around, at least amongst my colleagues, is 95%. Some of my colleagues even say 99% of auditions for film and television, professional auditions, not indie film, not that indie film is not professional. It's not what I mean, but like studio productions, network TV, that kind of stuff. It's all going to be online. Now, here's how we've sort of morphed that to work for our communication agenda. Again, understanding that environment, understanding what the needs are from both parties is important, because what was happening from just booking off of self-tapes was the actors were getting on set that were good at home in their living room after doing 900 self tapes and
Yeah.
editing together or whatever, right? And then got on set and froze. So and when I say we, the industry at large recognized there needed to be an additional screening process. So typically what happens now is the first round is going to be self tapes. The second round, or like even like a mini round in between, is going to be you live with the casting director in similar format to this.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do that, some people don't. And then the callback round of you being live with the director, so the director can give you specific adjustments that they want to see in that performance. And that's usually done live online. And in addition to that, if it's a bigger and more vital role that couldn't be easily recast, they will also factor in rehearsal time, and more so for the smaller roles than they ever used to in the past. So that's so that they can see on set, what are you going to do, kind of thing. What do you like in person? Because, you can make yourself look pretty good online on Zoom with the right lighting and whatnot, even filters and things like that. But who knows what you really look like on set? And sometimes we don't even see their whole bodies. I always encourage the director to let's have them stand up and do that thing where you turn around. We just want to see what they look like, because we've never met them. No one's ever met them in person until they arrive on set. So, we've evolve or die, so to speak, but we've evolved into this. I don't see this changing anytime soon. I think that this is so good for actors because, number one, once you realize that you were always being judged by video, so that hasn't changed. You have the freedom at home to create a safe space where you're comfortable, where you can do multiple, but I don't encourage you to do a ton of takes. If you're
You
doing,
could do 1,000 takes and you always end up picking the first one anyway.
probably. And I
Yeah.
always love it when people send me like they're like, oh, what do you think of this? What do you think of, like, they all look the same. There comes a point when they all look the same.
Another benefit for me personally as an actor, living in Phoenix but working in LA, like I would, go all the way to LA just for that 5-minute audition and come back. Well, it saved me a lot of time and gave me more opportunities to submit, all over the country more so because then once they agreed to, if the video is good, then I could actually make arrangements to go out there. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
100%. It is. There are so many benefits just like that. You're saving time. You're saving money. You're saving the environment. There's so many benefits to actors to do that. Actors now, you have to be able to work in the state. There's union rules. You have to be able to work in the state that you audition for, particularly if you're coming in as a local hire. Local hires, the smaller roles are usually going to be local hire roles. Anybody can work in any state if the production is willing to put them up and pay their per diem and their travel and that kind of thing. I just did a film called Down Mexico Way, filming in Arizona, as a matter of fact. And the director and the producers were very happy to bring people in from out of market. They obviously looked very hard at Arizona, but they were also fine with bringing people in from out of market as well. So that's, both good and bad. Local actors had the advantage of, well, I'm the best in this local area that you're going to get. So they would get those roles. So now it's kind of putting actors' feet to the fire to not only just be the best in Arizona or the best in New Mexico or the best in Colorado or the best in New York or wherever. You have to be the best, period.
Well, because I always wonder that, because when I started out, the actors that I became friends with, the end game was always to kind of move to LA and live in LA and try to make it or whatever there. But I find myself and either other actors, like, you don't really need to move to LA anymore. Like, as long as you're willing to travel to work there, like, you can kind of live anywhere and audition wherever now. Does that seem true, or?
Yes. There's a little bit more to it because you do have to, like I say, qualify to be a local hire based on the union standards. which can be a bit confusing because,
Yeah, I'm not. I should clear this up. I'm not SAG or anything, so all my jobs were like non-union,
well,
so it
and it
was a
doesn't
little bit
matter
easier.
if you're SAG or not, if the production is SAG, is what the so it's still gonna, even if you're non-union, if the production is under a union contract, there's things that they have to do or not do. So say, for example, you were, let's say you were in Arizona, you go to Los Angeles and it's a big union production, and they hire you for, officer number one, right? And
I
you,
think I think that was my role.
a psychic. I'm here
The
all day.
cold case files.
I feel like you're going through some changes right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think it might have been number 3 though.
All right. Officer number 3. And you said you lived in LA. You lied and said in your sleigh, I'm from LA. Okay.
I didn't do that.
No, but if you did.
Oh, I see.
So let's say that happened. Okay. And then as you're filling out your paperwork, you're all excited and you're on set, you're filling out your paperwork and it says address. And you fill out your paperwork with your Arizona address. Now you've got a contradiction of what you put on the paperwork and what you said during the casting audition experience. So what's happened that's burned some productions is that you come in, you've made like you're a local. I'm saying you. We'll pick someone else. How about
When I got the jobs that I hired for, like they knew I was from Arizona and they would hire me on. You know what I mean? I never lied to them.
productions?
Yeah, like I was on LA casting, and then I would submit for roles, and then there was never a time where like, oh, you're from Arizona, you can't come. Most of the time I'd have to pay for my own like travel and stuff like that. But I had friends that lived there.
Though, because LA casting isn't that.
No, it was like lead roles for like like a lot of those true crime docs, like people, nothing like not like any major show or anything, like like People Magazine investigates, cold case files, things like that. So Westworld, shit like that.
Mhm. Well,
Unless they were breaking some rules I don't know about. I don't
yeah,
know.
I mean, they probably were. They probably were, if that's the case. Or
I'll have to edit this out.
like background work, for example, it wouldn't be an issue per se. But for speaking roles, the union could flag that as when it goes through payroll. The union could, and this is what's happened is. I mean, I hear these stories all the time from, like I said, casting director colleagues of mine from around the country, but specifically in LA, it seems to be a little bit more so. The payroll company, it goes through, it flags that you're in Arizona because you put Arizona on your paperwork. And in one case, a friend of mine was telling me that this production, even though they had agreed to, this guy was going to go live with his mother or something, there was some kind of health issue. But because he had been gone a while and yada yada, the production ended up getting fined like hundreds of thousands of dollars because they should have paid this person to be an out-of-state hire.
Damn.
And
Yeah,
like,
I'm very unfamiliar with all of that stuff. I'm like the rules and all that. So
I was going to
I don't know
say,
how that works.
it's a little tricky. So it takes that, but that is something that people have to think about now. So on the pro side of being able to audition from anywhere is awesome. You do have to be careful. You do have to kind of look at kind of some of the semantics and the legalities of some of it as well.
Do you have any just maybe quick video audition tips you can give, or maybe some big no's that actors do that you see a lot, like when you do go through video auditions?
Mm-hmm. By the way, my battery is running out, so I will
Oh,
either
okay.
do plug. Are we almost done?
Yeah, like 5 minutes. Is that cool?
Okay, yeah, we should be fine. But if it dies,
We're good. I'll put a cool outro.
because I had to move, so I moved away from my
No, you're good.
battery source. Okay, so some of the things that I talked about earlier with the audition deal killers, those obviously are things to not do during an audition. Some of the advice that I would have.
Well, I meant for video auditions in particular.
Yeah, so video audition. Well, it doesn't matter if it's video or in person.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. The performance wise, we're still looking for the same thing. But video auditions specifically, you want to have a good setup. You want to be lit from the front so that we can see your eyes. Your eyes are the biggest communicator that you have. that we process more information through someone's eyes than any other form of body language. So your face and your eyes need to be lit from the front. You need to have a plain, non-distracting background so that nothing is going to compete for attention on screen. Everything else in the performance, you've got to start strong. You know, this is very generic. Obviously, I go into a whole heck of a lot of detail in my program, but generally speaking, you start strong. And you want to make sure that you emotionally captivate the receiver, which in this case is going to be the director watching your video, as quickly as possible. And like I said, there's formulas that I teach to specifically to do that, to activate that neurocoupling or that emotional connection right from the beginning. And that's true of both dramatic, serious pieces as well as comedic pieces as well. Going back to something we had kind of touched on earlier, I said that 5% of your communication impact is based on your physical appearance. But let's look at some of where the rest of those numbers fill in, because this is going to help with the advice that I would give you. 80% is based on your visual communication in general. So 85% is your appearance and your body language and your visual. Okay. And so you need to put more focus on what you are doing visually in front of the camera. 9% is the meaning of words. So when you get that script memorized, the meaning of those words is only 9% of your communication. It's important. You should do it, but it's only 9% of your communication impact. 6% is based on how you say those words. So if you deliver those words in a really interesting, meaningful way, awesome, you get another 6%. So let's do a math here for a second. You come in for an audition and you have the lines memorized, so you've got 9%. You say the lines in a really cool way, you got 6%. So now we're at 15%. And you show up and you look right for the part, so you get 5% for that. You're at a 20% now impact ratio for your communication. And you are trying to be better than everyone else. There are people coming in at 100%, because the other portion of that, the visual side of things, is the communication through your eyes. I do a whole course on the power of gaze, your body language, your visual communication. 85% is that. And that's a big chunk that the average actor doesn't consider in their auditions. Most actors are looking at their lines, getting their lines down. They feel like once they've got their lines down, as long as they say it in a kind of a cool, believable way, that they're good. It has to be so much more than that. It has to be so much more than that for you to be better than everyone else. And ultimately, I've said this so many times, you do not get the part because you're good. You do not get the part because you're good. You get the part because you're better than everyone else. And that's the reality of being an actor.
Damn, you gave some knowledge bombs. I really appreciate you joining the show. I just have one last quick question before we wrap. Does IMDB score for actors matter?
Yes,
It does matter?
it does.
Okay. I was never really sure about it. Mine jumps up and down, but I've seen actors take it like really seriously, and I wasn't sure if it mattered or not.
Absolutely matters. That's the difference between them paying you your travel to another market and getting an above scale offer, and eventually being offer only and not having to audition anymore. That score matters. But the time to start on improving that score is now. There's actually a blog post on my website under the section called mini lessons. It's just a blog post, but it gives you all kinds of free advice on how to get your IMDb score to improve so that you can get more from that number.
Sweet. Well, do you want to say where people can find you online and stuff? I have your link tree right here.
Oh, perfect. The most important thing and my kind of the place that I like to play the most is on Instagram.
Oh, okay, I got that right here.
Yeah, my Instagram there. Communication method for actors.
Yeah, make sure to give that a follow.
And
I'll put links up in the description too. So
perfect. And then the best source of all of the information connected to my work is actingscience.com. And they've got some different things in the link tree there, different freebies that they can download. Last month's theme was actors elevator pitch, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, I saw a free actor elevator pitch. So you have an 8-week film auditioning workshop starting on the 29th. You have a free download for an audition deal, Killer's mini guide, 6 ways to improve your IMDB score. So there are all kinds of stuff. So if you're an actor and you're looking to better yourself, make sure you check out Faith Hibbs-Clark and her site or Instagram. I just pulled up your website here too. Sweet. Hell yeah. Yeah, this is awesome. I really appreciate you coming on and doing all of this.
Absolutely. I had fun. You're a hoot to talk to. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, and anytime you come back on in Phoenix, if you ever actually want to come in the studio and do an episode, I'm down. Or if you ever just want to come on and bullshit or whatever, just let me know. I appreciate it. So
we can talk about some funny stuff. There's I used to working with politicians. I've got some funny stories from that stuff as well. But yes, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and let's definitely do this again sometime.
Sweet. All right, guys, that is a wrap. We'll see you on the next episode.